Hello, Internet. My name is Ryan Ingram, and today I've got my awesome, wonderful brother here with me, and we just hit 80 properties and wanted to take a little bit of time just to talk about what all we've done this year and kind of the journey that it's been. So, hey, Will, thanks for hopping
Hey,
on.
yeah, thanks for doing this. It's always important to take some time out to celebrate.
Yeah, we rarely do it. So, man, we started the year at 38 properties, and it seemed like such a far-fetched goal whenever we told each other that we wanted to get to like 80. I think you said it. I think I was happy with a number much smaller.
Yeah, and you say why 80? I mean, we wanted to double our portfolio size this year.
Mm-hmm.
So we had done enough up to this point. We've been in the business for 3 years now. So we've done enough to this point to figure out, get some systems and processes in place. And, I felt like buying 4 places a month may make sense.
That's what it comes out to, huh? 4 places a month.
Yeah, a little bit less.
Mm-hmm. Man.
Yeah, so we figured some deals would fall through along the way, and but I mean, we did it 42 places in 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a
And
great now.
yeah, and we took some time off because one of the mistakes that we made that we needed to correct for pretty quickly was we were buying a lot of properties that didn't already have tenants or residents in there. So we had all of a sudden we woke up one day with like how many rehab projects do we have open? Like 10 or 12?
Yeah, between 10 or 12 houses under construction, and it just stretched our bandwidth to the point where we weren't quite comfortable with it. So we wanted to get that number down, maybe to 4 or 5 again before we really started acquiring properties again. So it took about 2 or 3 months off of acquiring to go ahead and get those construction projects wrapped up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we learned a lot about contractors through that experience as well. And then it made purchasing places that were already occupied that much more appealing.
Yeah, or places that needed minor rehab. We're buying places that needed full gut rehab, and it just took too long and too much money and coordination. So the
Right.
places where we can get in there and do some carpet, some paint, some minor touch-ups, maybe renovate a kitchen or a bathroom or something, but not a whole house.
Right.
We could take on those projects.
Yeah, a lot of time, for the longest, and I think our model still is like kind of front loading all the potential capital expenditure items, but at the same time, also getting immediate cash flow is, more short term rewarding probably. But yeah, I think we did a good job at making the majority of our properties potentially maintenance free for the next few years by taking care of those large items.
Yeah, of course. And we put AC units in our houses as well, which sometimes they don't come with being in Dayton, Ohio, and you don't really need them except for maybe 1 or 2 months out of the year.
Right. It gets hot sometimes, but not nearly like other places. So yeah, central air really isn't common at all. Plus, the housing stock is pretty old here. So the things that are common now weren't common back in the 20s and 40s and 50s when these places were built.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think some folks may ask how we got to 80. So what we did was we thought about where we wanted to be at the end of 2020, and then chunked up our goals into quarters, and then we did a 12-week year for at least the first quarter, and then that's when we bought 20 some houses in Q1 of 2020. So that's when we decided we had to slow down a little bit, and but I mean it really helped to write out all the goals and to think through everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we also had like an unexpected windfall when we first set all those goals in Q1 and we realized, like we did the math on how much money we would need to raise in order to do that. And then, we had several people say, just in our natural conversation of telling people what we do, a lot of our friends said, hey, next time you need money, let us know. And I don't think we could have possibly anticipated the number of people that reached out shortly thereafter to see if we needed anything. So that was fun.
Yeah.
And then it just became a matter of deploying it. So for those of you that aren't familiar, the 12-Week Year is a book written by Brian Moran. We highly recommend reading it. We've been following it this year along this whole process. And the gist of it is you break up your annual goals into quarters. So however much you think you want to accomplish on an annual basis, you make actionable items per quarter. So you pick 3 or 4 things that you really want to focus on. So for us, we really just focused on the properties and just set the goal of, acquiring and raising capital.
Yeah, and we raised about 3 times the amount of capital we thought we would.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended up getting to the house number that much easier.
Yeah, now that's a fun thing I guess we could talk about really quick as well, is the demographics of our investors, I guess, because that's one of the common misconceptions when people are reaching out to me from the videos that they've seen, is they assume that we are very well connected with a bunch of uber wealthy individuals, and it's actually not the case at all.
No, our typical investor lends us anywhere between $20,000 and $50,000, and $20,000 and $50,000 means a lot to these investors. They're not multi-millionaires, so 20 to 50 grand is maybe a significant chunk of their savings, but they'd rather have it with us, where we give them 10% a year in monthly payments, rather than placing their money in the stock market or some sort of other retirement thing where they don't see any money or anything happening for 30 plus years.
Right, and they've got the security of the asset. So if for whatever reason something were to happen, or we were to default, then they would be deeded over the property, which has value that is equal to or greater than their investment.
Yeah.
Whereas, as you're familiar, in the stock market, your money could go poof and nobody could possibly be held accountable.
Yeah, you take 100% of the risk and you see, I don't know, maybe half the game.
Right. Well, where to next? What are we going to do now?
Well, now that we made it to 80, we've got to get to 120. So got to add another 40 properties. We should be there by summertime next year.
Summertime of 21. So that is condensing what we've just completed in 9 months into, what is that, 6 months? So now we're going to try to do it again, but 3 months faster.
Yeah, well, it'd be about another 9 months.
Okay.
From now.
Gotcha. Well, do you have any fun tips for people that are looking to get started or want to get into real estate investing?
Yeah, tons of people ask us about getting started or how to get into real estate investing. And the key is just to buy the first property. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be your best deal. You're not going to hit a home run, but you just have to get started. Mm-hmm. So, and then once you get started, you'll see the mistakes that you've made and you'll correct them for the next house. Then once you buy a house 2, you'll make a few more mistakes and you'll get those corrected. And then by the time you get to house number 10, you've made a bunch of mistakes and you've corrected them all. So now it's your pretty much smooth sailing.
Yeah, turn it into a well-oiled machine, cooking with grease. So how about this, though? This is a question that I get all the time is, what's your recommendation for people that don't have any money or like $10,000 or less? Do you think it's time for them to get started in real estate investing, or hold on?
Well, Ryan and I started with $100,000. So we saved up $100K of our own money. We had both been working professionals for 8 to 10 years at that point. And maybe not quite, maybe 5 to 8 years.
I say, gracious, I didn't know I worked that long.
I'm 2 years older than Ryan. So, but yeah, it's very important to have some of your own capital, because you're going to misjudge a project and you're going to need to use some of your own money to finish it. Mm-hmm. So I would not get started with real estate investing if you have $0 or even 10 grand. Yeah, I'd save up a little bit more than that. Go pick up an extra shift doing some job, double down on your primary job, earn some extra income, get in a sales role. Sales, if you get a good sales job, your commissions are uncapped.
Yep.
So just go work really hard at that for a few years and build up the base that you would need to be a good real estate investor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's, real estate is such a capital intensive industry, and it's such a long-term play that, especially if you look at a bunch of the Deals Explained playlist where I walk through deals that we've done. I mean, it feels really good to add another property to our portfolio, but at the end of the day, we're only adding 100, 200, $300 of cash flow to our portfolio. So even if you were to get, 4 or 5 properties, relatively speaking, it's a very small amount of cash. It's not so much cash flow. It'll change your life. Now, over
Yeah.
the course of 20 or 30 years, those properties will certainly change your life as the principal's paid down, the market appreciates, and you get a lot of money off your tax bill at the end of the year. But um, all that just echo the same things that you said is, at that point, you really need to fix your income problem and highlight and come to terms with the fact that you're not making nearly as much money as you probably should have if you have $0 to $10,000 saved.
Yeah. And we do real estate investing part-time as well. Both Ryan and I have full-time day jobs that we go do. So that gives us the base income that we need to live on. And then, the real estate investing, we haven't taken anything out yet. We just started paying ourselves this month. We've been in business for 3 years, so we've reinvested the majority of our profits, for the past 3 years.
Yeah, that's a great point that it never really quite makes it to the videos. We don't rely on any of the real estate income. So all of the cash flow that we do have is sitting in our account ready to be deployed if any sort of maintenance issue comes up, if we accidentally misjudge a rehab project or anything like that. So yeah, that's a really good point. And we only started paying ourselves because we took over property management, and we had to, what we thought, drastically increase the amount of time that we spent in the business.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts been on property management?
So property management, it's been interesting. The first month was definitely a lot to get started, to get those systems and processes that we needed in place. But now that we've been at it for 2.5 months now, we're starting to see which tenants may be our problem tenants. And then, 89 to 90% of the people out there want to do the right thing. So transitioning was relatively smooth, about what you could expect.
Yeah, I think the one thing I definitely didn't expect was how eager the majority of our people are to help us keep these homes in really good shape. That was really cool. Like, their intentions are not to destroy them or wreak havoc. It's, they want it to be nice. They want to do their part in upkeeping it, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
You hear all sorts of horror stories about property management, and as we were thinking about taking it in-house, I mean, those kept just going over and over in my head.
Yeah, but thankfully our tenants have been great. We've got to chase down a small percentage of the tenants each month for rent, but would be typical anywhere.
Right. Yeah. And I think, relatively speaking, we have pretty good margins. Or, I think the number of people that we actually have to chase down is minimal.
Yeah.
And we also have been fortunate enough not to see too crazy of an impact on our rents collected from this pandemic that we're in either.
Yeah. Yeah, our tenants that were affected, most of them were able to pick up another job or switch companies if they needed to.
Mm-hmm. So 120 by the end of next summer, then do we need to raise more capital for that?
We should be able to refinance and reinvest.
That makes sense.
So, we bought the majority of the houses this year in the first quarter. So we typically like to hold the properties for about a year and then refinance. We give our investors the option of getting their money back or reinvesting with us, and 90% of the time they want to reinvest with us because they like the 10% that we pay out.
Yeah, getting the monthly deposit has to be a good feeling. It's fun for us on our end, being able to provide that.
Yeah. The part that I like most about it is the bank that we use will automatically send checks out for us. So there's all these checks just being pushed out for us.
And we just recently got fancy with the little ACH payments instead of physical checks for whoever wants to do that.
Yeah, and you may ask why 120 houses, and 120 is where Ryan and I really wanted to get to in order to solve the income problem, to where we can make enough money at that point that neither of us really has to do our day job if we wouldn't want to. So you figure it, making $200 a month per house times 120 will be 240 grand that we could split between the two of us. And you know, of course we wouldn't take that much, and then we'd reinvest a chunk of that in the business still, but that'd be, you know, enough to live on and enough to do as our full-time job if we so choose.
Right. And I think the coolest thing is just being able to like start realizing these things, because when we started about 3 years ago, as we've mentioned a few times now, but our whole point was just to, because we were reflecting on how many kids combined we would have in college at one time. So it's cool to be a little bit ahead of where we need to be in like 12 years from now.
Yeah, of course, we thought it was a huge task to take on, maybe having 5 kids in college at the same time. But I mean, we're on our way there. So
yeah, and I guess if you look back at where we were when we first had that conversation, we were, you know, gainfully employed in set W-2 jobs, not sales. And yeah, doing the math on how long it would, or how much money we'd have to make for those 5 kids was insurmountable, it seemed.
yeah, because you figure, I mean, my oldest is 6 right now, so it'll be 12 years from now when he's in college. And college, who knows, might be 50 grand a year,
or
so
free.
Yeah, or free. You never really know. Who knows how many elections we're going to have between here and there.
Right.
How things will change.
Yeah,
that's
that's fun.
$50K a year per kid. So we have to make up that much in cash flow, which is doable.
Right. It's also really cool to know that like once we hit the 120 mark, if we just over the next 12 years decided not to grow and we just started strategically, you know, restructuring the loans that we have on those properties. I mean, we are almost, you know, barring nothing tragic, that's almost going to turn into something sort of like an annuity where it's just expected month over month.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, it goes back to the whole financial independence piece, is how can you have your assets produce enough money to cover your living expenses? And I mean, most people put their money in the stock market and play the long game, which there's nothing wrong with that. It takes 30 years to get there. And we've been in business for 3 years, and we'll hit the financial independence mark somewhere in between year 3 and 4.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. And, you know, I know it's also really, really cool. There are a lot of people out there that say you should never do like a partnership or anything like that. We get a lot of that feedback as well. But man, I've had just the time of my life doing this with you. And I think that I wouldn't even have like 20% of our portfolio size if it was just me left to my own devices, you know. But, you know, I think especially when it's family that you're close with, I think you just can't beat a good partnership, especially because, you know, we've kind of known each other for a long time. So, you know, your strengths really overcorrect for my weaknesses. And I like to think the same. So
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You know, Ryan has always been the go-getter between the two of us, charging 200 miles an hour. So, yeah, I've never been that way. So that's Ryan's what makes it easy to acquire tons of properties in a short amount of time.
Well, thanks.
And then I'm our little CFO. I do all the finances.
Yeah, which is super helpful because to go off what you said, it's hard to see some finances at 200 miles per hour.
Yeah, just money flying in all sorts of different directions. Hopefully it'll hit the right spot.
Yeah. But yeah, and another thing I think that really helped us out a lot is we went above and beyond to make sure that we were in the appropriate rooms with the appropriate people inside of them to really be able to just help guide us in the right direction. So You know, we very seldom did we make any business decision, any larger business decision, without like consulting people that we view as more successful and more wise than ourselves.
Yeah, of course. And a common question that we always get too is, where do you get your capital from? And we always tell people our friends and family. And they say, oh, your friends and family must be loaded. We don't have friends and family like that.
Right.
And it's like, well, we didn't necessarily start out that way. We made new friends, and we went out and sought after the wisdom and the advice that we needed to get where we are.
Yeah. And, you know, and just trying to develop who we are as individuals. I mean, I think that also really changed the type of people that we attracted just naturally as well. Not to get into, you know, too much of the frou-frou law of attraction stuff, but I mean, truly people of certain character want to be around other people of certain character. I think it's just the way, you know, human nature works. So that's been a really fun journey as well. You know, with Aaron Walker and his group, that group has definitely, you know, circumvented decades of trial and error for us.
Yeah, because I mean, these people have all made their own mistakes, and they can pass those along to us, and we can hopefully dodge a few of them. We're not going to dodge all of them, but hopefully we'll be able to miss a few.
Yeah. What do you think was our biggest hurdle going from 38 to 80?
Just around April or May, after we had acquired, you know, 20 plus properties in a very short amount of time, maybe 3 months, then having to deal with all the administrative stuff of onboarding all these new properties and fixing them up. And we took about 3 months off of buying places. So because we just needed to get stabilized out. So
right.
Having the wherewithal to slow down really
That's
helped
true.
out.
That's a good point. And I get self-conscious and kind of shake my head at myself each time I think about that one property that we never even got the admin stuff done for. So the previous owner continued collecting rent for that property for like 3 months after we owned
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And that one was like a Section 8 property, so it was just set up on automatic payments, and we had to go through tons of hurdles in order to fix that one.
Yeah. So it's just stuff like that we've had to learn along the way.
Well, this has been tons of fun. It's always tough for us to kind of take a step back and celebrate. I'm trying to convince you to fly up here for one day and eat a fat steak.
Yeah, and we sure will. Jeff Ruby's, best steakhouse around.
Oh yeah. And I guess it's pretty convenient since it's down there in Cincinnati. So it's just, you know, 30 minutes away from the Cincinnati airport, which is actually in Kentucky.
Just fly in for a steak dinner and then fly back out. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, so it's.
I wonder how much time is between those flights. I wonder what the shortest amount of time you could spend in one place before you actually have another flight lined up.
Yeah, I don't know. There's connecting flights between Jackson and Cincinnati.
So, oh, really?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to fly direct.
Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. Is Cincinnati a smaller airport?
And Jackson's a small airport.
Gotcha. Well,
I think Jackson's a really tiny airport, so we only fly direct to a handful of places.
Oh, I guess before we call it a day, the other question that I get all of the time that is strange to answer is, do we exclusively invest here in Dayton? And I would say by and large, the answer is yes. And we've gone back and forth on this a lot of times. Like, we've tried to invest in Jacksonville in the past, but, you know, the numbers just don't necessarily make sense.
Yeah, and with Jacksonville too, it's a very competitive market. So it's about double the size of Dayton. The metro area's got 1.5 million people here in Jax. There's no state income tax. People are moving from all over the country to go to Florida right now. And Jacksonville is one of the larger cities, people-wise. So every investment property that pops up, there's going to be 10 to 15 offers. And you've got to be very competitive. It's hard to get the houses at a discount. So can it be done? Yes. It's just extremely difficult. You got to have a great network set up in place and have those competitive advantages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and right now, while we still have so much opportunity ahead of us in in Dayton, then it doesn't necessarily seem necessary yet to invest elsewhere, because I think, especially if you have any desire to do this at scale, then for each different area that we invest in, that's not a stone's throw from from Dayton, then we're going to have to rebuild the property management team, the contractors, the handy people, uh, in order to actually be able to effectively manage the property. And the way that we've been able to build relationships is just honestly by sheer quantity. We have some contractors that go above and beyond for us all the time, just because of the volume of work that we're able to go to throw their way. So I couldn't imagine restarting that at that point.
No, it takes time to build all these relationships.
Mhm.
So, and you want to build a strong financial base too before you spread out and do other things. I mean, we don't make enough at this point to go full time into the rental property business.
That's true.
So to venture out into a different market wouldn't financially make sense before we build up a strong enough base to support us and take on the extra risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we would like to do. That's why this was a phenomenal milestone for us. And this, it really helped us, because we were both skeptical and we knew this was a very aggressive goal at the beginning of the year. So hitting this, was a lot of momentum, and like a well-needed, I guess, kind of proof of concept for us. So now we know that we can do this. And 120 is going to be a giant milestone for us because of the financial independence, and also because, exactly what you said, it's going to give us the ability to take on more risk. And it sounds scary saying that, but just be able to venture into different industries or different types of real estate and know that we can weather a few mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, anything else?
I think that's all.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you having on the call. I'm going to go ahead and post this as another round of celebration. I posted a video early of the duplex. So if you haven't watched that, go back and watch it, because that's number 79 and 80 for us.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. Great buy too.
Yep. You got to love these big old brick buildings. They're tanks, concrete block and brick. I don't think it's going anywhere.
No, not anytime soon.
No wood involved in this one. All right. Well, I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.